Welcome back, duelists. In today's market watch, we're actually be going over a few choice cards that are extremely affordable that will be amazing in future formats, so that in those future formats, you will not be breaking the bank to be able to pick these cards up. And first on today's list is Silent Graveyard, and that is the ultra rare from Dual Devastators, okay? And the reason we're going to be talking about this card especially is because it actually only has one holo printing, and that is that ultra rare out of the Dual Devastator set. The rest are commons, so if we're going to be picking up something, even though it's cheap, you might as well get the holographic version and bling out the deck a little bit. But we definitely want to be talking about this card because in Yu-Gi-Oh! It really likes to favor the graveyard formats, and this card is a staple to be able to counter those graveyard decks. And yes, there are a few other cards that work very well against graveyard decks, like Abyss Dweller and a few of its brothers, but this card is actually easily teched in graveyard decks themselves. So you can actually use your turn, set up your board, use your graveyard effects, and then because it is a quick play spell card, you can then set it down, and then on your opponent's turn, flip it up, discard that card, and then shut down their graveyard altogether. And then that is why it is a nice prime choice for this market watch. And then on top of that, like we were saying, it is extremely affordable. So we're going to be going over some of the options here for us today, and those are all extremely cheap. We got some for 30 cents, a little bit for 34 cents, but essentially after the shipping, you're going to be doing $1.30. But there are some sellers on the page 2 and 3 that you can actually see are extremely affordable, and like we said, there's some for the 45 cents, and they got some stacks there. So essentially for about less than $3, you can actually pick yourself up a playset of ultra rare Silent Graveyards, and I would definitely do that going into some future formats. After that is a relatively new card, and that is Numbers EVEIL. Now, Numbers EVEIL is an interesting card, and it has a lot of wording, so it definitely has been slipping under the radar, okay? And then, essentially, if your opponent controls a monster that's special summoned from the extra deck, and you do not, you can activate Numbers EVEIL. Then you take 4 number monsters in your extra deck with different ranks, you add their numbers together, and then you summon out a 5th number monster from your extra deck whose number equals the total numbers of the other 4. And then you take them and attach them to it as material. And then the other restriction to this card, and the one that's kind of holding it back, is for the remainder, while you have that number monster on your board, you cannot special summon other monsters except number monsters, okay? So a lot of players are like, all right, that's it, I'm definitely not playing that card. But I would like to say, not only is it kind of an insane starter, you can bring out a bunch of number monsters. Honestly, the potential is insane with this card, but you can start off by having an amazing starter, something with like 4,000 attack, and then on top of that, kind of cards like number 62, you can actually exceed out of them into the chaos number 62, okay? And then once that original number is gone, you then do not have the restrictions on you anymore. So essentially you can bring out a nice boss monster turn 1 if you're going second, and then cheat your way out of it, so then you're not restricted to those number monsters. And again, for being a new card and an ultra rare, it is extremely affordable. So let's go ahead and see exactly how affordable. And we're looking at about 20 to 25 cents. Again, with that shipping, you're going to be paying, you know, a little bit above $1 a piece. But at the very top, we definitely see there's one seller selling them for 49 cents, and he has a stack of 6. So if you're going to be buying a playset of this card, essentially, again, you're going to be spending under, it's about like $250, a little bit under $250 for a playset of these cards. And again, moving into the future, I could definitely see Numbers EVEIL being teched in a few decks, and definitely be a nice way to be going second as a starter. So I would definitely be considering picking up Numbers EVEIL going into the future formats. Next up on the list is Sky Striker Ace RAYE. And now we're going to be talking about the ultimate rare from OTS Pack 20. And now I would like to say, while I was making this market watch and getting all the cards together, Sky Striker Ace RAYE was definitely a card I was going to be covering on that market watch. But since then, we've actually seen new support as well as some love on the ban list for Sky Strikers, okay? And honestly, that has made the price of RAYE increase. It was sitting at about $32. It definitely has gone up since, but I do believe it will definitely be going up as well in the near future still, okay? So we've actually seen that other support in the Sky Striker engine is extremely expensive. Some of their links are actually like over $100 a piece easily at this point in time. So the fact that Sky Striker Ace RAYE was sitting at that $30 price tag was kind of an anomaly already, and then it did get some love on the ban list, so it has gone up. But I would definitely believe in this card to be going up even more as time goes on, given that this is the main monster in your Sky Striker builds. As we know, RAYE is just the main card in those builds, okay? So right now, even though it did see an increase in price, they are extremely, relatively, I should say, affordable for what Ultimate Rares can be, okay? So it is sitting at about a $40 price tag, and like we were saying, we did see some $32 all the way up to like $35, but then it did jump, okay? And that is due to that ban list, okay? But if you are a Sky Striker player, a Sky Striker fanatic, picking them up for about $40, that's an $8 jump from where it was, is not that bad. And again, given what the other support for these cards are, it is definitely a move that you'd want to do sooner rather than later. Now, next on the ban list, we're actually going to be switching it up just a tiny bit, and we'll be going to some cool little support that I like, such as Domain of the True Monarchs. And then kind of a shout out to our last market watch where we covered the Ansha Mufrit, which is the pendulum where you get a draw and a free tribute. Essentially, if you're playing no extra deck cards at all, we're going to be kind of seeing the support for some Monarchs here, okay? And that is because we've actually seen new Monarch support has been announced. And if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. We essentially saw the Caius and the Thestalos kind of like mixed Monarch. So I do believe we will definitely be seeing more Monarch support announced, okay? Now on top of that, the domain we want to talk about today is the OTS 3, okay? So it is super rare from a tournament pack, and they are actually extremely affordable. So if you are a Monarch player, or you know, kind of like those builds in general to lock your opponent out of the extra decks with those tribute summon cards, Domain of the True Monarchs, and specifically the one from the OTS pack, is something that you should definitely be looking at, especially if you want to see them go up in price. And that is because they are extremely affordable, given that they are super rare from these tournament packs. And again, if you're going to be picking one up, you're essentially going to be spending about $1.50, maybe a little bit more after the free shipping, unless you find a seller that has multiple of them. But honestly, when I've been kind of giving a little glance to this, a lot of them are just selling one. So about $1.50 per domain of the True Monarch. But in the near future, if we do see more Monarch support come out, I definitely guarantee that this price will go up past that $1.50 threshold, okay? And then kind of sticking to the same little theme right there, we have SELEGLARE, the Luminous Lunar Dragon. And now, this card is an interesting card. It's a very beautiful card as the reprint from the Mega Pack 21, but it definitely complements the Monarch support in a Monarch format. Not only is it level 6, but it actually has the same stats as the Monarchs, being 24, 1000. And then on top of that, you can actually normal it without tributing, or you could tribute summoning it out normal. But either way, as a quick effect, you can return it to the hand and take control of an opponent's monster until the end phase, whose attack is less than itself, okay? So overall, it's an amazing card that lets you steal cards either during your turn, during your opponent's turn, and then since it does return it to your hand, you can essentially be recurring this effect every turn you bring out the Lunar Dragon. And then again, given that it has the Monarch stats, you can use some of the Monarch support to bring it out easily, okay? And then even if you're running things like the Domain, it's going to lock them out of the extra deck and be stealing monsters from the opponent's field, okay? So overall, definitely be consider picking up the Luminous Lunar Dragon in the future, especially given that this beautiful version of it is really cheap, okay? And we've seen some movement in the market. We've seen 13, 5, it's even gone a little crazy with 35 and 50. We've been seeing some movement on this, and even a few days or months like before that, we've seen even more bought out. But there are definitely still a bunch sitting there on the marketplace. So if you want to be picking up this beautiful card, especially for the price it is right now, I definitely would recommend doing so sooner rather than later, because the more support we see for Monarchs coming out, the more cards like this will be flying off the shelves in the future. Now, let's go up to something with a little bit more of a price tag and some beauty, is Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon. And again, I'd like to specifically talk about the Ghost Rare here in this market watch. And that's because we've seen new Zark support coming down the pipelines. And this card is definitely one of those cards that we will be seeing played in those Zark builds. And essentially, it can actually be special summoned out very easily with Soul of the Supreme King, which we actually already have right now. So even some of my teammates, such as Bones, big shout out to him, he's been playing Dynamorphia and teching Soul of the Supreme King in there, so you can either bring out the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, or you can actually see Crystal Clear Wing brought out. Okay, one is the Omni Negate for the monster effects, but Crystal Clear Wing is the Omni Negate for the spells and traps. And then top of that, it actually is immune to monster effects if you chain after their activation. Okay, now on top of that, he'll gain insane attack off of their monster as well, so he won't have to worry about getting beaten over, he won't have to worry about getting hit by the monster effects, and then you get a free Omni Negate of their spells and traps. Okay, and that is insane, especially since you can cheat them out with Supreme or Soul of the Supreme King, okay, which we're actually seeing teched in a few decks right now. And then on top of that, the other thing that makes him really nice and on this market watch is he is insanely cheap right now for a Ghost Rare. Okay, and we're going to be going over to see especially how cheap he is, and that is light plays are about $23-24. Near mints are sitting at about $25 right now. And then once you go over to the next page, you'll be going over about $25. But for a Ghost Rare, for a card that we're going to be seeing play, especially in the Zark formats or when that support comes out, I would definitely recommend picking these up if this is something you would like to do, because in the near future, especially once collectors, get their hands on these, they will be going up as well. So Crystal Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, definitely a card to be considering picking up right now. And then last on today's market watch is PERFORMAPAL Odd Eyes Dissolver. And now I would like to say this is from OTS 19, so it's a super rare. There's also an ultra rare version, but as we know, the super rares out of the tournament packs definitely get a lot of love in the marketplace. And right now, Dissolver has been seeing a lot of tech in the super heavy samurai matchups or the decks themselves, as well as some pendulum builds. After the most recent ban list, a lot of decks have been kind of scurrying to see what kind of support they need to fit in to replace what's been left out, and Dissolver's been a card that they've actually discovered, and that's because it essentially is easy access to Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Its pendulum ability lets you fuse from your hand or field, but its monster ability, if you can bring it to the board, which it actually allows to do that itself through battle, is able to fuse with itself from the monster zone as well as one of your monsters in your pendulum zone. So again, it is easy access to Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. On top of that, it is extremely cheap because it has just started being teched in these decks such as Super Heavy Samurai. So right now we're seeing multiple versions, about 42 cents, 43 cents, and we even see some for 46 cents. So again, for less than $2.50, you can actually pick yourself up a playset of PERFORMAPAL Odd Eyes Dissolver. So you definitely want to potentially be doing that going into this next format, especially if you want the pendulum builds or the Super Heavy Samurai build. And guys, that is the market watch. If you got anything from this video at all, definitely do consider hitting that sub button. I definitely appreciate all the love we've been seeing. Our numbers are going up, and I would love to see them go up even more. And again, if you want any other videos or want to see anything else on market watches or decks to beat, do comment down below. But we will have other videos flying up, more market watches, as well as some how to beat decks as well. But as always, guys, stay safe, have yourselves a good night, and suck it, nerds.